Hello and welcome. It's Mindfulness on Monday with me and Suné. Hello, Suné. How are you today?
I'm good, Philippa. I'm good. Like I just said, can't believe I'm wearing a jumper towards the end of June.
I know. I wrote my newsletter and I sent it out, and the heading was Flaming June, as in, it's supposed to be hot, but then
I,
again, it's not. Well, we've had
yeah,
summer. That's it now.
yeah, no, exactly. Well, I did see your newsletter, and I did think, yeah, flaming hot. You must have started that headline a few days ago.
Anyway, it was referring to the hot flushes as well we might suffer in the, time of our life. Uh,
Yeah, so it may be a relief for many when it's not that hot. But yeah, I thought, yeah. Anyway, can't choose the weather.
so no, not with any degree of accuracy. Not today, anyway. So we are talking this morning about mindfulness and food. So mindful eating, but it kind of begins way before then, doesn't it? Really, because it's around that. Am I hungry? What is this sensation? Is it boredom? Is it
Yeah.
habit? What is it? And so even before we get to the table, even before we prepare food, even
Mm,
to develop this mindfulness around that whole sensation.
mm. Yeah, and I think I want to say this quite early on and I see this happening quite a lot in social media, and a lot of it's like, how to control calories by eating mindfully. And it's almost using mindfulness as another dieting strategy to reduce food intake. And that's completely not what it is. Um, yeah, just to kind of get that out there, because there's that thinking around intuitive eating and mindful eating that it's a weight loss strategy. And you know the fact is that if you start eating with more awareness, you may realize that you're eating too much, or that you've been eating the wrong stuff, and as a result of that, maybe reduce the amount of food that you're eating and maybe lose some weight. But it's not a strategy, I think, um, to lose weight necessarily. But yeah, that. And I think also, a lot of people with the whole mindful eating, they think that they have to sit and breathe deeply around their food at every meal and eat for 40 minutes. And, that's not realistic always. But I think it's this awareness. And you're absolutely right. It starts 10 steps before you're actually sitting down in front of your meal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even in the shop when we're doing our shopping, perhaps, uh, because ultimately, from my perspective, what I am, trying to share with people is a philosophy around the way that I've lived my life, and it's been for a very long time that. The focus on health in the broadest sense, and how to never need to go to the doctor if I mean,
Yeah.
if possible. And so this started, like I said before, when my son was a year old and he had that cancer diagnosis, and my world's tipped on its head, and so you start to look, perhaps examine more deeply things that
Mm.
you might not have thought of before.
Mm.
So, and when you're faced with these situations, where do we begin? And I just
Yeah.
moved to you are what you eat, and so my focus on healthful nutrition practices began then.
Mm.
Um, but and so this has been for me a long time of label reading, and shopping round the edge of the supermarket or whatever
Mm.
those other tips are. But bringing this awareness into our actions, just in the broadest sense. Today, we're talking specifically around food, but the media moguls would have us go about our lives mindlessly, consuming
Yeah.
uh, all the stuff that is possible to consume,
Mm.
rather than considering, what we
Yeah.
might be better.
Yeah, yeah, we're fighting a big movement, right? Because you are bombarded all the time, and I mean, I'm no consumer expert, only that I consume, like we all do. But yeah, they absolutely prey on our weaknesses almost. Of course, the food needs to crunch a certain way and smell a certain way and look a certain way, because that's how we eat, is through all of these senses,
Mm.
and then throw in our emotions and stress and everything else that drives us to reach for a short-term gratification or for a dopamine hit in any way, shape, or form. So it's quite challenging, I think, to navigate your way if it's not something you've done, like you and I've been doing this for such a long time that I'm just so intuitively aware of what it is that I need when I've had too much, when I'm hungry, when I'm not what I want. But it's been such a practice for such a long time. But starting on this route with someone who's never paid attention to it, who's always just, and this is especially true for, well, I work mostly with women who have followed diets all their life. They follow the rule and they follow the dogma that is set out by someone else, and then lose that ability to listen to what it is that they want or what their bodies want and need. So, becoming a vegan for the sake of becoming a vegan, and then not really being in tune to actually, maybe that's not, I need something else, or I need something different, or just to be a bit more aware of of actually how the body feels as well with eating all of this stuff.
Yeah. This is interesting, obviously, because I have established a whole lot of rules for myself because this is the kind of thing that I do. Um, and sometimes you do very much lose touch with what it is
Mm.
that your body needs. I think, if we actually get to the point of being thirsty, say for instance, then we've actually gone beyond the point of hydration. So that similarly with food, if we get to that point of ravenous hunger, then you've gone past the point
Yeah,
at which it might have been prudent to seek out some nourishment. And
yeah,
I do kind of subscribe to the fact that we have the circadian rhythms, and that you know it's a chemical equation that's going on inside of us. That your metabolic rate is something that means energy is being consumed throughout the day. And I mean, what do we know? The brain is the biggest consumer of energy. So that's got on the go all the time.
yeah.
So I guess how do we really navigate this? Because I've heard about intuitive eating. I kind of thought that's what I do, but I don't really know, to be honest. So how do we actually know? How do we know what we should be doing?
Oh, yeah, that's a big question. I think it starts with becoming curious and actually taking time to really figure out or to discover what it is that you need, or I think it starts with people realizing something is not working, something's out of whack, and many times it starts with weight, right? When someone realizes they've been losing weight and gaining weight, and they don't really know how to eat anymore because they've they've lost the ability to listen, to follow their own instincts with listening to their bodies. And they're so used to following diet rules or weight loss rules, which is quite different to, I think, like intuitive eating is a bit like, I do that. And it sounds, you say you have rules, but, we have flexibility within that. It's, what works for you. For me, it's like, if you see that every time after you have a cappuccino, you are gassy and bloated and you need to run to the loo, that maybe it's something to do with the cappuccino. So is it the coffee or is it the milk? I don't know. Play around with it. Get curious with it. And your body is giving you that signal. It's telling you something with this. Or every time you have cereal, a cappuccino, and I don't know, a cheese sauce with your potato, I don't know, you start noticing all of these symptoms that you get. So, that's when you start getting curious and say, okay, well, what is it about these things that are contributing to how I'm feeling? And let's start paying attention to it. Let's see if I exclude this for a little bit, for a couple of weeks, and see if things change. And then and then add it back in again. And so I think the first thing is that curiosity, knowing that something is off and starting to get curious about it. And then being the investigator for yourself to see, okay, well, what is working, what is not working. I mean, it's not straightforward because there's so many other things. Yeah, there's always all this other stuff as well, if you're on a low budget or if you're really, really stressed, you may be eating a really good diet, and that can also contribute to a load of symptoms. So, I think it starts
being one of them. So no, you're right. And I think for me, the starting point is food as fuel, but also food as medicine. So that, I know because, like you say, years of practicing these sorts of strategies, that certain things will have, when I consume them, will have certain effects on. And so certainly with my menopausal, perimenopausal time and the symptoms that I was suffering around insomnia, say, for instance, there was absolutely no shadow of a doubt that there were certain things that if I ate them or drank them would contribute to that. The palpitations that I would get in the middle of the night. So now this never worried me, getting palpitations, because anyone who's ever been running and had your heart, pounding in your chest, that this can be okay, So the fact that I was in bed fast, was fast asleep, and the next thing you know, your heart's doing this is slightly like probably not the time when my heart should be racing. But I could absolutely guarantee that once I dissected the nutrition, that there were certain key things that would contribute to this, and the biggest one for me was two. One, alcohol. Two, salt. Now, what do we have? Salt. So what we have with both of those is dehydrating properties. And so that propensity to decrease the blood volume, and therefore your heart has to work harder to get the blood around the body, equals potentially palpitations. And so, like you said, I was putting two and two together. So then I decided that by excluding these things, would that make a difference? And you know what the answer was? Categorically 100% yes. So I could manage that palpation symptom, which would cause me to wake in the night, fueling this,
Yeah.
sleeplessness I'm having by not having alcohol and not having salt. Now, for some people that leads to a life less full with joy, but
Yeah, but I think, yeah, well, yeah, but I think, this is when that internal motivation becomes so strong, right? Because there's a definite cause and effect. It's much harder to say you know how hard you need to exercise because it's good for you.
mm,
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But if I only see the benefits in a year, what motivates me to keep
mm,
going? And it's the same as, why should I give up coffee, alcohol, and too much sugar if I feel fine, like if nothing? But if your body's starting to tell you, like in menopause or or premenstrual or when you're pregnant,
mm,
those first 12 weeks when all you can eat is carbohydrates and refined sugar, because your body, it's almost like out of control, but your body is so loudly and clearly telling you what it wants. But I think the interesting thing is that it's always doing that, but because we're not paying attention, we don't always hear or feel or adhere to the feedback that the body is giving us to reduce certain things or increase other things. But it's when you start paying attention
mm.
that it becomes a bit easier to do that. Um, yeah, so I think like what you said in the beginning, it's those 10 steps before the actual sitting in front of the meal. And like you said, walking around the edges of a supermarket. And that's just starting that awareness, right? Of, I'm just aware that this is better for me. I'm aware that, oh, I do want some crisps or whatever, but maybe I should just investigate. Is it actually because I'm hungry? Or is it because it sounds nice or someone is doing a sample of it? And
Yeah. And or is it because you've seen the advert on the television where they pop the thing of Pringles and everybody's having a party and
yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah. So they talk about um, uh, uh, there's about 9 different hungers that you need to almost investigate before you actually get to what food you before you start fueling yourself. And the God-given natural thing for a human being to stay alive is to eat. But before you actually get there, there's 9 different hungers, and it starts with now let's see if I can remember, but yeah, eye visually, so what the food looks like. Hearing, so is it the crisp or the opening of a crisp packet? With kids, you can they don't hear you, but the minute you open a packet of crisps, they'll come from 2 miles running into the house seeing what that was. And then it's smell, and then taste, heart hunger. So, the kind of emotional, is it that you need something else which isn't food? Cellular hunger, so, like low blood sugar, or like you were saying, maybe like too little salt actually in the diet, or too much. Or is it that there's a deficiency in something? Maybe it is you need some B12, or on a cellular level. I can't remember where I am, but there's all of these different things to kind of check in. And also then the physical tummy hunger, the growling, the I need food hunger. And then kind of investigating, well, what is it that I feel like? What do I actually want to eat? So, I mean, all of these things need to happen like this, right? But that is kind of dissecting a little bit, especially when people struggle with emotional eating and think that that's a bad thing. And emotional eating, I think, that's a whole topic on its own, I think. But think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's a signal and it's a message, and it's almost like you need to see it as a teacher of what is it that I'm hungry for, which isn't food that needs satisfying here.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I like all those different I like lists. A bullet pointed list, and I'm happy as Larry. So yeah, I do like that. And so you can scan through those different, categories or factors, and
Mm.
and start to dig a bit deeper. And then this, the idea of what is it that I need at this moment. And I think you mentioned pregnancy then a little while ago, and actually that's probably one of the key times when you might actually have experienced that sensation of your body calling for a,
Yeah.
a particular constituent, like maybe the carbohydrates, and of course the menstrual cycle. That
Yeah.
used to get me every time when I was having a menstrual cycle. So yeah, I definitely remember, and that they play to that, don't they, on the television, when the pregnant woman's sending the husband out in the middle of the night to
Yeah.
retrieve something from the motorway services or wherever he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's also it's
mhm.
sorry, it's so interesting our attitude towards that. When we're in that situation, but when we're pregnant, well, I remember I was just much more compassionate towards myself, and it won't beat myself up when I have two magnums or whatever, because I'll just be like, I'm 8 months pregnant and it's 32 degrees in the shade, and it's okay. Or it's okay to have the extra little bit of pasta because actually my body really needs it, but in a much more compassionate and kind way than other times. We're so strict with ourselves, and there has to be boundaries, of course, but it's just when it's almost we've been given permission to
Well, I mean,
not eat for two,
there's
but just
been given permission to eat two magnums in one day. I'm not sure that was what nature intended. But yeah, I mean, I think I recall, feeling like I really wanted liver and never having cared much for it in the past, and
Mm,
things like that. That you can kind of understand if you were needing a bit of iron, that liver might
yeah,
suddenly become
yeah,
appealing.
yeah.
I mean, I agree what you're saying, that we do need to be kind to ourselves, and also, rigidity in every minute of every day is
Mm, mm,
tantamount to obsession.
mm,
So
mm.
therefore, the balance that we seek, and is beneficial, ebbing and flowing
Yeah,
invariably through your day, your week, your life, and that your body will, well, they say, don't they, a baby will take in all the essential nutrients that it needs over the course of a week. It's not necessarily going to be over the course
yeah,
of one day.
yeah,
And so there's latitude within that, the scope
yeah,
of a week, say, for instance.
mm,
And maybe
yeah,
just noticing trends, like we said, around the time of the month, there's a trend for carbohydrate craving. Um, but the idea that we, by becoming more mindful around what our bodies need in the broadest sense, then we're more likely to nourish ourselves,
mm,
whether it is with movement,
yeah,
with food, with the mind.
mm,
We're more inclined to give of ourselves what it
yeah,
is that we require. And so
mm.
this is really what we speak to, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, and it's not just about the physical act of eating or exercising. It's, why am I doing it? What is the motivation for me to continue doing this?
Mm.
Much beyond looking good in a bikini, which I think those days are gone. But But just other values that are important. And I think in a broader sense also our responsibility for community and the environment and where we buy our food from, where we shop, who we support, obviously depending on how much you want or can spend, but I think we all can do our part in that. And yeah, do I cycle to go and get my bread? Do I drive? Do I get my bread from the baker, or do I go to the super? Just those little things. I think every little bit that we do is a contribution, and is shopping and buying and consuming and nourishing with awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we haven't talked about the raisin exercise, or if that's a different one. Maybe eating a piece of chocolate mindfully.
Yeah, I think we can do that next time. Maybe is have a look at that. I think the raisin exercise has so many benefits because it is just that first introduction to paying attention to something absolutely ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but no one eats no one eats a raisin like that. We just shove it in our mouth. So I think it's a very good introduction to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that. Leave them wanting more, Suné. That's what I say. So we'll come back and talk more on this topic because, as you say, it is big and expansive, and there's lots more scope. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I'm actually feeling my tummy grumble as we speak, so I'm headed off to seek some nourishment. Take care. Have a fabulous rest of your day.
And you. Nice to speak to you. Bye.
Bye for now.